What's up, buddy?
We are live, my friend.
I swear you say the same line every time. We are live, my friend.
That's because consistency builds positive habits or some inspirational shit like that.
Oh yeah, John. Maybe you should have some consistency in your wardrobe.
Let me explain something to you. Variety is the flavor of life, my friend.
Oh, but yeah, okay.
The 1970s, this would be on fire. What I'm wearing right now, people would be like, "What is this curly?"
It's 2020, bro. Okay, it's 2020.
I'm bringing it back, Pete.
You are? All right.
I'm John Lee, by the way.
And I'm Beats.
And welcome to the reflection on the election. And today, Beats, what are we doing?
Today we're talking about like how the election process is. And I mean, I have my opinion. John doesn't like it, of course, as always. But we really want to get into like how the election works, like, you know, what the electoral votes mean. You know, how do you casting your vote? What does that do for you? You know what I mean? So like, especially like geographically and all different sorts of little caveats to how you vote. So. I told you. What is it with the bomb gear? Look at him.
James. So, actually, I didn't want to tell anybody this, but this is what I'm going for. I'm going for a disco James Bond. I just heard that they're casting for a 1970s like retro flashback modern Bond movie.
So like an OG Casino Royale.
Yeah, but like 70s style, right? Like once I get my chain and my fake chest hair.
You know you got to be physically fit to be a Bond, right?
My friend, you want to talk to me about physically fit?
I know I'm fat. I don't care.
Oh, I ain't fat. I ain't fat.
I eat tacos.
Neither are you.
Potatoes, McDonald's, all that shit.
Beautiful. You are beautiful inside and out. All right. So let's just go ahead and get this thing started. So today we have a very special guest, and that is Patrick Wickard, founder of Breathe America.
Yes, sir.
I don't know. You may have heard of him, especially if you're watching now on Breathe America. Although a common question on that thread is, who is Patrick? We hopefully by this time that's all sarcasm. He's going to be joining us. We're going to be talking about, like Beat said, the election process. We're going to go into all the lovely election delicacies.
I'm gonna start off right now.
Start off right now.
You know how I do. I just jump right into it. Why don't we have a streamlined process? It's 2020. Why is every single state doing something different? Why are all these little roads that people can sue about? They can do this, they can do that, blah, blah, blah. Why? We need to streamline the voting process. Hands down, period. It just needs to be streamlined.
Sure. So what you're saying is you want to completely strip all of the states' rights and their ability to determine how they want to do their voting structures and make it all federally mandated in one solid streamlined process.
Bro,
wow.
No,
that's so
this
smart.
Is the same argument we had earlier,
so
bro.
Smart. You know,
this is the same argument we had earlier. I'm going to bring up the same points.
The same box, and then we'll just have three people that protect the box.
That's not what I'm saying.
Take it and they count through all of it together, and that way there's no way to possibly subvert the process because it's so streamlined.
Nah, that's not what I'm saying, bro. That's what I'm saying. You got what is it? North Carolina, 12 extra days, 12 or up until the 12th that they're going to accept the ballot. Come on, bro.
I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to go ahead and bring our guest on so he can call you stupid as well. Everybody, listen to Mr. Patrick Wickard, Captain Breathe America himself.
What's up, everybody? How you guys doing?
So,
all right, John, hold on. Before I get into all that ridiculous BS that that guy just said. Saturday Night Fever called, man. They need their wardrobe back. Like, seriously, what the hell is that?
That's who I called to get the wardrobe, in fact. And they were
Well,
very great.
I hope you got a receipt because you need
Dude,
to
they
take
didn't
that
even
back.
give me a receipt because they didn't even charge me. They were
you
like, no one called for this
you
suit
can't
in
steal.
15 years.
You can't steal. That's stealing. You can't steal.
When you
Against the
call the
rules.
people up, it's not stealing. Listen,
All right, Beats. States have the right to determine for themselves because we are the United States of America, meaning each individual state is like all its own. They get to decide all for themselves. We all have different laws. We have different rules. We have different regulations. We pay different taxes. All of those things happen for all sorts of different things. So a federalized voting system, when we, for this kind of stuff is actually would strip states of their individuality, so to speak. It'd be like saying
I'm not saying
it's the same thing as saying all kids have to go to school wearing the exact same pair of shoes, the exact same socks, the exact same. If the federal government starts dictating everything each and every individual state does and how they do it, then we are no longer the United States of America. We are just simply the federal government of America.
I'm not saying how they do it, how they count them, or how they do this or how they do that. But if they have the same kind of, like, some states have a piece of paper where you fill in with a bubble and you scan in the machine. There's some states that have you poke a hole and you scan in the machine. If all the mail-in ballots were the same, if all the stations were the same, then they would be easier counted. You know what I mean? I'm not saying.
This reminds me of something funny. I like to dip chicken in like egg wash and buttermilk and then back into like the coating and then back in. I like to do it twice, right? Because I like crispy fried chicken, right? But what if they told me that I only could do it once? But I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it the way I want to do it. Because that's the way
I about chicken, though. Like that's you're comparing chicken.
I want to do it my way. They want to do it their way. They are grown ass of free Americans, and they run their state their way. That's their choice. If the people in that state decide that they want it differently, then it is their job to go to their representative officials and demand it be done the way that they choose. We are individual states that are self-governing, meaning
why
needs to stay that way.
Then why can't they all count them the same, though? Why do we have all these different issues and stuff? Like, there's the one issue you brought up, the 109,000 votes in Michigan. Where the heck did those come from, right?
I don't know.
Exactly.
Not my job to figure it out. That's Michigan's job to figure out.
Listen, hold on a second. First off, there's two things we have to think about in the whole entire electoral process. One, people don't like taxes. Taxes fund things like voting apparatus, right? Voting processes, voting centers, voting information, voting handouts, voting education. All these things are government provided services. Since we historically hate that the government is trying to consistently run everything, just kind of like some of the problems that Patrick was just pointing out or whatever else, then it should come to no surprise that we chicken. Yeah, right. It should come to no surprise that we are not actually giving them the resources to do this. Secondly, one of the things that is most prevalent on people's minds right now, I think my mind, your mind, everybody's mind, is the actual integrity of the voting process itself and whether or not the results that we're collecting are the right results, the correct results, the non-manipulated results, or flat out something that is not the accurate numbers. So right now, we're thinking a lot about frauds specifically. In a moment of time where our country's so peaked and so intense and so full of this suspicion and this hatred of the other side, like right now, everybody's thinking, I'm watching to make sure that the other side doesn't cheat. The myriad of processes that we have across the United States actually lend another layer of security to the overall process and the vote, because it's a lot harder to crack 355,000 systems with all their individual votes than it is to crack one system, which would be a standardized policy or a standardized voting process, than it is with the current system. So when you look at it that way, not only is the chaos something that is naturally progressive of the way that we view governmental processes anyways, because we always bitch about their inefficiency, but we refuse to give them any more money. We constantly yell that they're misusing our tax money, but what we don't understand is that these individual systems, these individual departments and processes, they don't get to have a say on whether or not we blew 1.4 trillion in the Middle East. Like they don't have any say on the military industrial complexes like dark alley deals and stuff. So when we refuse them money, we get huge deficiencies like this. Now, do I say the answer is give them more money? No. The answer is way more complicated than that. But that is one thing you have to remember is if you're worried about fraud right now, Beats, don't make it easier for the people who wish to fraud.
See, I don't think I'm worried about fraud, bro. What I'm worried about is an equal and fair election. Okay. Why not? Okay, how about this? Let's change this up. Why not keep everybody's individual right? All 50 states to do however they want to do. But if we're going to do election day, then why not the day off? Why not make sure that the people who don't want to vote actually really don't have to go, and the people who really can want to vote have the opportunity to? So that way you can't really argue the facts at that point.
What do you argue the facts?
So everybody has a day off, right? To go vote, whatever. Okay. You go vote and you count the votes. Okay. Of course, there's going to be some people that's going to have to count the votes, right? So those people are definitely going to have to work. Okay. But make it like overtime, double time and a half, or a time and a half, whatever. Okay.
Make it a national holiday, is what you're saying.
Yeah, make it an actual holiday. You know what I mean? Make it a national holiday. And then you can't argue who didn't vote, because if you have the right to not vote, right?
Pete, let me jump in here for a second. I personally agree. I think election day should be a national holiday, but I don't see how that has anything to do with how individual states choose to count their votes.
No, I'm saying leave that alone. Take that completely out of it, and that drives that argument that I have gone. You know what I mean?
We haven't done this for a minute. I forgot. You change gears fast. All right, so on to the next one. Got it. We're off the way we count. We're on the national voting holiday. You know what? 100% agree. I vote yes. I'll send my ballot in as soon as you tell me where to go with it.
Great. Just wait till you see. We're gonna release a turbocharged version of the show too.
5 minutes.
You get
5 minutes. 1 hour down to 5
sentence per topic. And it's just like, and they're not gonna be. It's not gonna be easy either. It's gonna be
legit impossible for you to do, John.
Like pro God or pro life. You're like,
that's not one sentence.
Freedom!
Yes, Christine. He's a little all over the place. I get it.
All right. So, okay. One of the things that Crystal just brought up, that's a good idea. Voter registration, it's largely voluntary. What do you feel about making that mandated?
To have to register to vote? But are you talking about like how you have to register for the draft? That make you have to register to vote?
Well, no.
Only males have to register for the draft.
Yeah, we have the selective. They call it the selective service now, but yeah. And technically, you don't even have to actually really even answer that question if you never get a driver's license in the United States. So if you never go get an ID or driver's license or anything like that, you technically don't even get asked the question of whether or not you quote want to be part of selective service. But I think it's way different just because, like, with With the draft, you're getting carted over to another country and you have to go and fight for America or whatever. With
But what if you don't want to vote?
Don't vote. It's not a federal requirement to vote. It's a federal requirement to be registered to vote.
I say absolutely not. I'm 100% against this idea. And it's really simple for me. If somebody wants to vote, it's the simplest process. I took both my teenage kids who are old enough to vote this year in with me. They registered at the polls. It's a small form. They filled it out. They put it in. They showed their ID. And next thing you know, they're a registered voter. Having a mandated 100% everybody is registered to vote, I think opens the door for drastically higher rates of fraud, because now you have names and access to people that aren't going to vote that you can use in order to fraud systems. And as we become more and more electronically based, I think it's something we need to take into consideration, because I don't know shit about computers, but I do know they can be hacked, and I do know things can be twisted around. So
yeah, I don't like that idea. I think that's a bad idea.
I do not want a national or mandated register, period. I think if people want to vote, they should. If they don't want to vote, they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to be forced to register.
I didn't vote. I didn't vote for probably 12 years, dude. I didn't vote at all.
You can actually vote at the polls, Melissa. Or you can actually register to vote at the polls.
Didn't they just start that? Didn't they just start doing that?
Hold on. It depends on which state you live in. Not every state has that. In Idaho, yes, you can go to the polls as an unregistered voter and vote. But in Wisconsin, for example, you can't. You have to register by October 31st, I believe. Each state's a little bit different. The only reason I know that is because I was looking into Wisconsin for some stuff earlier today, with help of Billy, actually. But no. So it depends on which state you live in. But a lot of states do allow same-day registration and voting. So, yes, it depends on your state, though. We can't say all of them, though.
So, for me, with the electronic voting, just to clear up, I'm not really worried about the fraud, because I think the fraud is inevitable. I think that no matter what, on a long enough timeline, this voting process, if there is not some serious reinforcements put in immediately to not only to address the integrity of the voting process, but also to address the integrity of the entire election process, some sort of stand-in for civilian oversight for that process. Because right now, it is so deeply held and manipulated by the parties themselves. So it's very interesting. A lot of people don't really know how deep the parties are in the actual fundamental organizations of a standard presidential election, even down to the way that your local states, how their electors are actually chosen. They're actually chosen by your state's majority parties. They're not chosen by the people.
I'm gonna agree with you on that. Let me jump in here real quick. I was today years old when I found out that the Democrats and the Republicans share equal amount in the party that counts, or in the people who count the votes. Okay. I don't think any of them should count the votes, because I'm going to go with John on this one. I think that it should be a third-party civilian group counting the votes.
Or definitely some more public, non-interferable situation. What we need to do is we have to have a system set up that safeguards that, because voting is a constitutional guaranteed right. So even when we look at the way felons are treated, and felons, they lose their ability to vote, that's a violation, a constitutional violation. Now, I know a lot of people out there probably were just oh my God, these guys are scumbags, they're villains, they're criminals, screw them, who cares? It's really not about that, and it's not about them. I'm not fighting for some murderer to get his ability to vote back. But I question the government's authority to ever have taken it. And that is where it comes down.
Let me throw this
process. Go for it, brother.
If it is your right, it cannot be taken away. If it is your privilege, it absolutely can. Now, I'm with you. I struggle with this idea that felons lose their right to vote. They lose the right to own firearms unless, and I'll make the concession that if you're a violent felon, I'm good with it, even though I still struggle with that because our rights shall not be infringed. It is absolute. Our rights are not privileges. They should not be taken away. But as far as having a third party system vote, man, I'm going to disagree with you guys a lot tonight, I think. As far as having a third party group actually count our votes, I disagree. I think the two majority parties, and I am a very anti two party system person, but the two majority parties should have equal stake in the counting of the elections. And that needs to be balanced at all times. We need to have the same amount of counters, the same amount of observers, and the same amount of oversight for the counts in every single location, because that's the best way to actually ensure that they get the most accurate results. Because if you have a third party person, you can no longer control their bias. At least if you have X amount of R's and X amount of D's counting votes and ballots, then you get equal biased.
So when you say you have equal of each party in the counting room, and you have equal amount of oversight, are you saying that, let's say, okay, I'm just trying to mull this over in my head, so I'm going to try to explain it the best way I can. Are you saying that, let's say you got a Democratic counter, somebody who's counting votes, and you have somebody who's overseeing them, that person be Republican, so that way it's fair? Do you see? So they can't, like, because how are you to judge whether or not that Democrat's going to count a Republican vote as a Republican vote?
Well, you get completely. That's not where the problem comes. I see what he's saying. What he's saying is basically the two parties being such polar enemies in this confrontation, opponents who are actually have a lot at stake, they're going to be watching each other like hawks, right? So the idea is that the Republicans are watching the Democrats, the Democrats are watching the Republicans. So let me ask you this. Let's just take some basic numbers. Let's say that there are, 100 million people in the United States. And right now, there's a three-way tie between the Democrats, the Republican, and the independent incumbent that's coming up. Okay? Where's the independence guarantee of his fairness in this situation?
I was gonna bring that up here in a second, because I don't understand why we're always just a two-party race.
Kick to one or the other to make sure that no matter what, the third guy doesn't get in. Because no matter what, the system that you're describing, Patrick, is a power consolidation system. And that is exactly what we need to remove in a lot of ways from the system itself. But I don't think that we turn it over to a third party completely. What we need is some sort of, we've said this a lot, civilian overwatch, which means that there needs to be a greater presence from the private citizenry involved in the actual counting and electoral process to overwatch the people that are involved in it that are, and I'm going to use the technical term, establishment bitches, I believe is what they're called.
The people that actually count the votes and the ballots now are citizens. And most of them are volunteers, in fact. So
absolutely. And
that's how most states choose to do it. It's volunteer based. People volunteer to work their polling stations, and they go in and they do the work. They don't get paid. They don't get nothing, and they have all this responsibility. And they do it because they want to do it. Now, where the equal parts come in, as far as Republicans and Democrats, that has a lot more to do with like the oversights and things like that. The people that deliver ballots, ballots never leave, the site of X, Y, and Z, all that kind of stuff. Now, you're talking a power consolidation system. I mean, that's a bit of a stretch, but let's say that it is. When was the last time the United States had an independent president?
True independent?
True independent, non-affiliated president. When was the last time?
When do you think the last time was?
I know when the last time was.
I don't know.
It's only ever happened once.
So someone who was apartisan?
Somebody who was non-affiliated to a party as president of the United States.
George Washington.
George Washington, exactly. Now, I love what George Washington has to say about a two-party system. I do. I agree with him 100%. I think it forces us to moments like this in our country where we are drastically divided, and we see two parties that are more concerned about gaining power and position in their agendas than they are about than they care about what's right for the American people. That's why we can't get shit through Congress. That's why we haven't been able to get anything accomplished in a long time. So I would love to be able to say, yeah, we need to completely wipe that out. But like, I'm also a realist. These people have, these groups, the R's and the D's, the reds and the blues, however you want to identify them, over long before my life even began, have been doing this. They have been making it more and more difficult for there to become a new party. Look what happens when a new party shows up. You know, people have
look
tried.
What happens
they
when
get crushed
people in
within a matter
Germany?
of years.
Look what happens when the youth in Germany started actually rising up, and the anti-Hitler youth started becoming a thing, and the political ideologies of resisting Nazi Germany and Hitler actually started to brew in back alleys and back houseways. And the German resistance, not a lot of people know, was absolutely imperative for us to actually get the clean invasion that we did. So when we look at it, no matter how you look at it, saying that, oh, well, it's always been this way, so why would I think it should ever change, is exactly the breeding ground for long-term tyrannies, long-term dictatorships, invisible dictatorships, which are the worst ones. When you look at the Democratic Party and you go far enough back into their main supporters, what you find is 2 or 3 of the same families. Same on the right. So the entire political engine, no matter how many times you swap out the spokes or the little hubs and the little pieces on there, and oh, we like this guy and we love this guy, they all still work for the same people. So what you're saying is that you are okay, or at least resigned to being compliant to a system where those few people run all of American politics at its highest levels. And I don't think that's the case. In fact, I've heard you say exactly the opposite. The reason why is because despite that feeling that you get, that it's an insurmountable wall, that it's a mountain of that we'll never, ever, ever traverse, because we'll never have enough hope, we'll never have enough support, we'll never have enough people on board. You know that's not true, because you know that one way or another, the United States is heading for a revolution. And it could be a political one, or it could be a bloody one. And I know you don't want a bloody one.
Actually, what's interesting here is I'm not content or consigned to admit that it's insurmountable or anything like that. Quite the opposite, in fact. I think in order to change this system, we have to learn to work inside of it. We have to learn the ways to actually use this system to our advantage. Now, right now, we don't use this system to our advantage. They use it to their advantages, and these parties continue to grow, and the voice of the people continues to get quieter and quieter. Now, we have some new things that have come into play over the last few years that have really opened the doors for some real change in this country. Number one, social media. It's conversations like this right now. Now, sure, there might not be a lot of people watching or whatever. We might not have the voice that we're hoping to have someday. But at the same time, where we're sitting right now, the conversation we're having right now could be being listened to by millions of people all across this country. And if millions of people, like I talk about all the time, start to come together and realize that we are not each other's enemy, and that the system is set up against us, and we start to fight that system together, regardless of whose side you're on, then we can actually have a moment to actually make change and actually change things in the way that we need to. If we're going to ever abolish,
system, or are we working in their system? Which one is it?
we have to change.
I want
we
to
have
fight
to learn
the
to work
system
within it before we can change it.
So is it your opinion that you must attribute to be a Republican or a Democrat to get significant change?
No.
So
I am unaffiliated. Have been my whole life.
My question is then why were you just defending the two-party system as something that is always going to be? And I don't understand, I guess, where you were going with that. Where were you going with that?
I didn't mean to say that. The two-party system is in place now, and it is very much locked in. They have a lot of laws and a lot of loopholes that control the fact that we don't see other candidates debate. We don't see this. We don't see that. Like, for example, if one of my ideas that I think is actually the way to actually effectively make change in this country is find a way to get 15 to 20 congressmen or senators, whether independent or Republican or Democrat, to actually come together and realize, like, look, we need to give control of this back to the people, right? To do this, you would have to build relationships with both sides. And the point of 15 to 20 is you have to have enough to where nobody has a majority. And you have to hold Congress hostage to pass the bills that need to be passed.
As congressmen and senators don't actually have to do debates. They don't have the rigmarole that the presidential election is. We very often see senators and congressmen that are actually independents, that are not Republicans
we have
and
two
Democrats.
independents in the Senate right now that were voted in. We have two independents that were voted in right now. Oh, sorry. We keep talking over each other.
So the key there would be to vote the right people in, rather than try to make friends with the established people that are already okay with the system that we all agree is fucking us. Right? What am I missing?
If we could, it would take a lot to get that many independents voted in, but yeah, that would be better, obviously. But a lot of, I think, I still see the good in people, and I think there's still good politicians out there that are disenfranchised with their job, and they're like, man, we need to do things different. I see politicians themselves speak out very similar to what I'm saying right now, and I think that it's one of those things where, with the right group of people coming together that were actually congressmen or congressmen and senators potentially, they could stop anything and everything from passing. And I got it down to, I think, one simple bill, and that is to make it to where Congress can only vote on one item at a time. All bills are single vote bills, period. No more pork, no more back end stuff, no more shady shit in the back of a 12,000 or 1,200 page bill. None of that stuff. All goes away. Bills are concise, simple, and easy to understand. It gives us as citizens the opportunity to not only hold our elected officials accountable to their voting record, because their voting record becomes very clear at that point, because there's no more like, in order to truly understand somebody's voting record right now, you'd have to go back and read all the details of these bills and the things that were on the back end, because the title of the bill literally is meaningless anymore. So I think we take all that away and we start there, and everything else we give back to the people from there. I think it becomes a whole lot easier to manage and a whole lot easier for us to move forward as a united country.
I think that it would probably work moving forward. I don't know. I think we would need some pretty complex bills to get rid of a lot of the shit that they've already put in. And I don't really like, for instance, I got into office and I wanted to start signing into executive orders or bills or anything else that I want to do, where I actually want to strip some of these unconstitutional liberties and unconstitutional legislations that have been pushed forward onto us. I don't want to do that one issue at a time, because that may take, I don't want to get shot. Like, I just want to throw down one bill with like 65 stipulations on it that says, no, you can't have this. No, you can't have this. This goes away. No more of this. No more of this. No more of these things.
Well,
so to a certain extent, the complexity is needed.
Yeah, I don't think he's saying that. I don't think he's saying that. He's talking about a bill in itself. Like, okay, the bill. Let's just, for example, just so we piggyback off what you just said. A bill that says how cops should use lethal force. Okay, then you have your little caveats down there. But we're talking about what I think Patrick's trying to say is the bill that should stop. The ones that should stop happening are, okay, so now you have another bill that is cops can't use lethal force. But then you have this other little caveat that has something to do about, all right, we can order this from China. Or you have this other little caveat that has something to do with something completely different, a whole nother issue that has nothing to do with it. And that honestly really does piss me off as an American citizen, because that it's bullshit, really, because you shouldn't be able to change little caveats here and there and bring back some bill from 1971 that you didn't win and add it to this one.
Yeah, no, it's a terrible system.
But that happens all the
Swiss
time.
cheese system. It's full of holes.
Look at right now. Right now, everybody knows everybody wants to pass another stimulus bill because people are still struggling with this whole corona things, right? It's been talked about. President Trump came out a while back and he said, because Pelosi was talking about it in the media, he said, send me a single item bill for sending Americans another check for $1,200 and I'll sign it right now. But here's the thing. They had a stimulus bill that they were trying to force through. But if anybody takes the time to go through and read it, like one item in there that I know Republicans and conservatives are never going to go for is no voter identification, right? They literally had it in a coronavirus stimulus bill that voters don't have to show ID in the United States across the board. Really?
That doesn't even make any sense at all.
It has nothing to do with the name of the bill or what the bill's for, but it's loaded on the back end with a bunch of garbage that does nothing but give them more authority and hurts us.
Yeah.
Which is why I think that is one focal point where it could literally be changed. And if we fought for that, and you know what, John, to your point, you don't want to take a bullet. I'll take the bullet. You know what? Because I am sick and tired of this country going down this path. Like, I have children. My kids are growing up. They don't need me in the house, like they did one time. But like, seriously, like if it cost me my life to get something like this done, it'd be worth it.
I think we need to be alive to get 18 to 22 congressmen together. So that I'm not sure if your scenarios are linking up. So don't jump in front of a bullet before you get the congressman or whatever talking to.
I'm just saying,
part of your plan. I'm just saying.
That's the state we have to be in. If we're not willing to sacrifice everything for what we believe in, then what are we doing?
You have to sacrifice it. Absolutely. But you have to do it after you fix the problem. We don't need another martyr. We don't need someone who gets shot halfway through the job. JFK was going to change a lot of things for America.
If he got a little too early. Beard?
And the reason that he got shot a little too early is because he went pretty hard from the gate, and JFK is my man. I agree with a lot of what JFK said. But here's what we see in this process. You have to be able to create the system that checks the system so you can change said system, so you can remove the checks from the system. Unfortunately, right now, partisanship has bled into every single aspect of the electoral process. The only thing that can fix it right now is overwhelming support by the population for non-establishment independent politicians, period. It's the only way we get out of it.
Why can't it just be the popular vote?
There is a bill that they have been kicking around Congress.
Bad idea, Beach.
It failed by 2 votes last time. That would federally eliminate all write-in ballots. If you are okay with this, you are not okay with the American dream.
Tell me why popular vote would be unfair.
That's the opposite of democracy.
What, mail-in ballots being illegal?
No, write-in candidates.
Oh, they wanted to do away with write-in candidates? You know how many pictures I got this week of people writing my name in? I was like, I'm not even in that district.
2 votes last year. And I'm
not even in that district that they're writing me in. Stop.
Fantastic.
At least be in the right district, please. Yeah. Your question about the electoral college versus the popular vote, Beats.
honestly, I never really understood.
He changes gears fast. Did you not hear him ask that question, John?
No, I just heard me repeating my question over and over again.
I know. I tried to shut you up, but it didn't work.
Great. Moving on. Go for it. What was your question, Beats?
Well, hold on. Why it's not just a popular vote?
The same reason that the electoral college dominates the entire national vote is the same reason the popular vote would dominate it. It's because it would put
John, shut up.
Hold on a second. I want to hear the rest of this. This is interesting to me because I know John pretty well at this point, and I'm very curious about this. Go ahead,
John. Go ahead, John. Don't be mad at me now, John. We'll talk later.
Thanks, guys. Can you throw me a bone? I appreciate it. Thank you. Give me a moment to speak.
Don't get too
excited
that. You're not going to like how I come back from this.
So right now in the Electoral College, a few states dominate the entire vote, basically. There's 4 or 5 states that if you land all of these states, it pretty much dominates the vote. At that point, you are scrapping for every tiny little state you can to tip it back in your balance. But for the most part, when we talk about the major swing states, you hit a certain number of these bigger states with bigger, denser populations, and you don't have to win the giant chunk. Look at it. We're looking at a 50-50% almost split right now in our presidential election. And if you look at the map, it doesn't look 50-50, does it? The reason why is because of the population density. It's the same reason they got rid of the popular vote, was because they were afraid that certain states with the highest populations would actually hold the most sway. So the entire election would be decided by a few key states. So they created the Electoral College.
Question: when did they get rid of the popular vote?
They didn't get rid of it, but it's no longer a legal way of nominating your president. Period. The only way the popular vote matters is that the Electoral College. That's what I just said. That's the whole point.
It's never been in a legal way to elect
in democracies. That's how it works.
Right. I got you.
In reality, that's the reason the Electoral College has been the process that we use, is because the popular vote, in theory, would be unbalanced because you would win the heaviest populated states, a few of them, and then you would drag the rest of the United States wherever that election went. Unfortunately, that's exactly what the Electoral College does. So in my opinion, the only system that actually matters is if you would do it by an actual geographic grid, where every single chunk of the United States is in a grid, boom, boom, just like this. And each one of those grids is a voting district with a section of representatives. Because now you have it evenly dispersed across the entire United States. And now you have that equal vote to those people in those rural areas that are not able to speak up, especially when you go into situations where you're like, say, like Texas. Texas has a huge cities, huge populations in those cities.
Bro, it's
how much
20
Texas is actually rural?
It is 20 effing 20. That's all I gotta say about that. The Electoral College is baloney at this point, if that's the reason.
It's the same concept.
Beats, I'm gonna tell you this. I 100% disagree with you. I am an avid supporter of the Electoral College. I do not agree with a popular vote, because the fact of the matter is, when it comes to this country, if you focus only on a popular vote. Now, John, your idea about geographics, this is the second time I've heard you talk about it. That's interesting. It's something I want to talk with you about more later, but for just talking about the Electoral College, I want to say this. If a candidate only needed to focus on California, New York, Texas, and Florida in order to win, because that's where the major population densities are, then the rest of us flyover states literally have nothing to say anymore, and they don't give two shits about what we say. They'll let in their rules that they pass and they make and everything else. This is the same reason I speak out against term limits, because the Speaker of the House is determined based on majority or seniority in the House of Representatives, who's been there the longest, right? So little states have that ability to keep electing people to where we can have say in these committees.
4 electors.
So then
Idaho has 4 electors.
So then take.
We are a flyover state, my friend. Before we had 30% of the vote actually even counted for Idaho, our electors are already voted.
So listen, take away the electoral votes from those big ass states.
Your Electoral College. Those
you can only get electoral.
Are you against the Electoral College then?
The Electoral College could be fixed, but
that's what I'm saying.
It's broken right now.
No, you're saying take your electoral votes away from major populated states, literally silencing the vote of those people's populations. Not a good idea.
No. Because if you take away the electoral votes, it forces that other candidate to have to go into those areas where he's not popular to campaign. That makes it fair. That's in my opinion, that makes it fair.
This is a problem. The electoral right now, the way the Electoral College is set up right now, and the way the popular vote would be set up, it's a tomato thing. Right now, our 4 votes don't do shit against California. California wipes out the entire Northwest. It's almost like our votes don't even count in comparison to California. Then we move on to the other bigger states and the other biggest cities and the other big denser populations. So right now, the electoral process is not accurately representing everything. And if our electors are allowed to be literally chosen by each party, so a lot of people don't know that. The electors in Idaho, do you know who they're chosen by? They're chosen by our three major parties. That is who does it. The parties are the ones that choose it, and then we go, oh, here's the candidates. Great. Who do we vote for? If I wanted to be an independent elector and did not want to be Republican or Democrat or a libertarian, because that's the top three in Idaho, I'm not allowed. I can't be an elector. That's a fair system.
How do we even decide
it has giant holes?
John,
giant holes.
John, you're one of the most avid supporters of the Constitution that I've ever met. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Agreed.
So, and Beats, have you ever read Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution?
Probably not.
It is where the electoral college and how our presidents are elected is literally written into our Constitution.
Yes.
Like there is a reason why our forefathers went this route. And it is weird, and maybe people don't get it.
You
but
know what that reason is?
So enlighten me. That's what
quoted as their reason.
Enlighten me, because it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Because we had an uneducated populace, and they believed largely the people would not know what was best for them.
Hey, bring that up. That last comment. That makes perfect sense for what I'm trying to explain.
What?
Put it up there.
Right here.
Times change, bro. They made that a long time ago.
If we're gonna get
Oh, so we should just, it's old, so let's just throw the damn thing out?
No, stop. Let me take my TiVo button.
But you know what? The supremacy clause. Are you aware of the supremacy clause in the Constitution, Patrick?
Yes.
And are you aware what it allows the federal government to do?
You're breaking up. Say it again.
And are you aware of what it allows the federal government to do?
Vaguely. Enlighten me. What are you getting?
It allows it to circumvent both state and constitutional rights if it thinks that it's for the best for the country.
Yes.
I would love to have that ripped right the fuck out of the Constitution, because that is the most unconstitutional fucking mandate in the entire Constitution.
Then why did they put it there?
By the way, all this stuff we don't actually have to listen to, because we snuck this in when we were cracking it open for the past few amendments that you wanted, which is why constitutional conventions are so terrifying. The supremacy clause basically says in the interest of the nation, we can pretty much trump any of these restrictions.
I like what Justin just said in the comments. You know what? If you want to start cherry picking the Constitution and deciding what parts we like and what parts we don't, then the document literally means nothing. If we're gonna,
the document is a living document. What do you think Thomas Jefferson meant when he said this is a living document? And there are reasons that we have an amendment process. The amendment process has brought us the biggest progresses we've ever had in the United States' entire history, society-wise or not. The 13th Amendment, our civil rights process, everything has been of us cracking open the Constitution and changing things. That is what is so magical about the Constitution. That is why it is a beautiful piece of document, because no matter what, whenever we need to rectify and imbalance in society, we can rely on that document to save us. That is the genius the forefathers had in writing that, and that is why we have a constitutional republic.
Okay, so the purpose of the Electoral College, Beats, is to protect rural America. Yes, in the beginning, John, it did have a lot to do with the fact that we did have not uneducated voters, but it was the fact that we didn't have the ability to communicate over long distances quickly. So they used electoral voters to travel back, speak to their constituents, and then go in and cast their votes for the people. That is what our representatives used to do for us. Things have changed. Things do change. The document does grow. Yes. Civil rights, good. Electoral college, though, Section 2, Article 1, also good. It should stay.
But should it not be refined? I'm not saying take it completely away. It should be refined.
Can you please tell me, can you please stare at the screen and tell me are the benefits of the Electoral College? Why you stand by it so steadfastly?
So in this country, we are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. There's a drastic difference. Everybody wants everybody thinks we're a democracy, but we are not. As a constitutional republic, the word democracy kind of leads to that everything needs to be equal, right? That's kind of what everybody seems to assume based on it, or
that's what I feel. That's what I believe.
Right. But Beats, I'm going to tell you right now, the United States of America is not a democracy. Period.
Then what are we? We always preach that. Then what are we?
Republic. We were designed as a constitutional republic. That is what we are, which is why I feel first of all, that's one of the main reasons I feel the Electoral College has to stay. Number two, with the Electoral College, it protects against, how do I want to word this? So, do you know why we have to be convicted by 12 members of a jury, Beats? Do you know why it's 12 members that have to unanimously agree to convict you?
Like why it's that number, honestly, I don't know. Why is it 12?
No, I don't know why they picked 12, but it's a good number, right? But what if 11 say you're guilty and one says you're not?
Then you got a hung jury and you go scot-free.
You hung jury and you go scot-free. Correct. Popular vote equates to mob rule, period. So if we had mob rule, if we wanted popular vote, it really does, John. Think about it. If we had
exactly what all majority politics are. That's what democracy is. Mob rule. Just like it takes a majority of the electors.
A democracy.
Yes. Okay, look, my friend. There are two types of established democracies: direct democracies and representative democracies. We exist in a representative democracy, which means that we elect our representatives based on our majority vote, and then they go forth and they cast their vote for us. And then the majority of their votes are gathered up and it's taken to the next level. And that's how democracies work.
So hey, bring up Chuck's comment real quick.
Which one?
758. It's a little up there.
So mob rule is just majority, and majority happens in every single level of even in our electoral college. The majority of the mob of the electors is the one who gets the actual choice. There's not they don't do a skills test. They don't roll a dice.
You're putting that on the Constitution or on the feds, or are you putting that on the state?
What are you talking about? What am I putting on what?
Each state ultimately, well, you're saying that the Electoral College is already mob rule. It's not, because each state has the option to decide how its electorals vote. That each state could turn around and say our electoral votes are going to go based on percentage of who wins the vote in our state.
Yeah,
I don't see nothing wrong with that.
All of them.
That sounds like a great system. Why don't we implement that?
We have two states that do that already, because each state decides for themselves.
Wow.
Hey, you know what? Those states decided to do it. If you want it in this state, petition for it. Each state represents themselves. Each state gets to decide.
Yes. Unfortunately, a lot of these states don't have a flowing, living piece of legislation that you can change at any moment in time. In fact, when they pass legislation that turns over control of our electors to the party mandates and allows the parties to actually do it, they are just allowed to roll with that. So it's not as simple as us going, hey, let's make sure that we get everybody's a voice and let's make sure we get a petition to do this. They can literally say, by state law, you're supposed to give it to the GOP as per our agreement in 1968. So now I have to become a congressman in a rigged system so I can vote on a law to change the rigged system, which is definitely going to be voted down by the other people in the rigged system. And this is why I believe we fundamentally need to change the two-party system. They're the ones that have already lobbied all of these states to get their preferred positions, to get the legislation that supports them. In fact, many states don't even allow you to have independent candidates unless you're actually one of the recognized state national candidates. All of the electors are required to do is vote as they are pledged. A pledge is not the same as an oath of office. A pledge is how they pledge to vote. And who do they pledge to? the parties who elect them and say, you are our candidates. Now we will send you forth and people will vote on you. And this is actually the actual process. So we have a bunch of laws in place that literally restrict them from going against voting the way that they would pledge they would vote, which means that if they follow the popular vote, it's technically against the law. How freaking rigged does this system have to be before I get someone go, damn?
John, how can it be against the law when you just said the popular vote and the electoral college are the same thing, 10 minutes ago?
What do you mean? How can what?
10 minutes ago, you were talking about how the electoral college follows the popular vote anyways. It's already the popular vote.
It's just follow it. No, I see where your confusion is. No, I'm saying they have the same general doomsday consequence. I didn't say that they follow each other. I'm saying that worst case scenario with the popular vote, a few states win the election for everybody else. Worst case popular with the electoral college, a few states win the election for everybody else because they have the most electors. The biggest states that would have the biggest populations also have the most amount of electors because we actually assign electors based on population. So if we are trying to eliminate dense populations from controlling the system, why are we creating a system where dense populations get more electors than other states? We're creating the same system. We're just allowing them to manipulate it more. They can decide where this goes. But no matter what, the electors, that the majority of the electors that are out there that are deciding these votes are from huge cities and states with huge populations, because that's how you get electors. That's why we have 4 electors in Idaho, even though we're a pretty big state geographically and geometrically speaking. We're decent size, bigger than all of the East Coast, but they have more electors than us because they have denser populations. So once again, the popular vote, the denser populations win the vote. In the electoral college, the denser populations win the vote. How am I wrong?
Sorry, I got caught up reading the comment.
It's a pretty long one. I got caught up reading it too.
I apologize. I tuned you out there towards the end as far as how you're wrong. I'm not saying you are wrong. I'm just saying that I don't believe in getting rid of the electoral college. Even if you're 100% right, this fundamental article or this fundamental part of our Constitution, I still have faith in, and I don't think it's part of the
I don't say get rid of it.
You want to get rid of the 2-party system. I got news for you. That's not in the Constitution.
Oh, damn. You're right. Except the 2-party system, actually, you're right. They're not in the Constitution. But the things they're violating are in the Constitution. For instance, by passing these partisanship laws that restrict the people that I can vote for in my state, they're actually impacting my constitutional right to vote on both sides. That's a constitutional, blatant constitutional violation. And would you agree that the right to vote arguably is more fundamentally important to the process than the actual electoral college, which represents that vote? Because if we don't have a right to vote, who cares about the electoral college?
100%. 100%. I'll agree with that.
There we go. That is where we see all of these things coming together. That is why the system does not work. That is why the electoral college does not work. It's because they already pledged to a party before they even start. They're the ones that pick them. They're the ones that choose them. They're the ones that tell them how to vote. And we're literally like, all right.
Let me ask this. Is that how the electoral college is designed in the Constitution, or is that the way it's been manipulated by a 2-party system that's looking to manipulate the system?
Well,
there's nothing wrong with
we should probably get into the system and manipulate it from inside.
There's nothing wrong with the electoral college. What's wrong is we've allowed a 2-party system to take hold in this country and manipulate things into their advantage, eliminating the strengths of our Constitution.
I'm going to agree with Patty Wacker on that one, because I don't think that the electoral college is that bad of an idea. Do I think it can be better? I think it can be better. I think
Is
we
it
can
necessary
improve
now
it.
versus then? Yeah, I believe it still is.
Why?
For all the reasons we've talked about.
Well, what we talked about was it was mob rule, and that we
No,
didn't want
like
the denser
the fact
population
that
to win the vote.
I still want states like Idaho and and smaller states to their votes to still count. You know, if we have 4 cities making the decision or 4 states making the decision for the entire country, the rest of it doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
And I understand what you're saying about the number of electoral votes that they have in these big cities.
So they're
It's
decided
true.
by
You're
population.
100% right.
So they still have the most
is,
votes.
but
We still have the least votes. We still can't tip the balance. We're still dominated by
look, we see it happen all the time where the popular vote doesn't win and the electoral college does, which tells me the electoral
that's the
college
only way it works.
Is
the popular
that
vote is for us. That tells you it's working. That tells you the system's working.
Yes. When you have,
I think Justin got it right here.
When you have 7 million votes coming in from, or say 25 million votes coming in from San Francisco area, right? And you have 10 other states that are all voting voting a different way. You want to silence those 10 states with the electoral college system. Yeah, California's going to get those 55 electoral votes.
Yeah, they still do.
Right? They're going to get
the electoral
votes.
The California electoral votes wipe out all of Northwest. They're bigger than all of us. But please continue.
Yeah. So Washington and Oregon, they typically vote with California though. So, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Whoa.
So you're saying that 3 states take up the entire one chunk of the United States. No matter what, you're describing the same problem, Pat. You're describing the same problem. You're describing the majority of the electors that come from the densest cities are the ones that control the vote, or the people that were in the densest cities would control the largest vote. It's tomato, dude.
Pull up Justin Prather's comment.
Prather.
Because it's said different. Look at that. If we win by total vote with no electoral college, it would be fair, but manipulated by states that are bigger and neither blue or red. Basically saying the culture you live in would be a big factor in the total vote. That would eliminate the little guy.
That's how it's supposed to work. So tell me how that works when our population and the number of electors that we get is based on the number of people that we would have voting. So actually, yeah, you're right. You know what? I'll tell you what, I just figured out an advantage to the Electoral College. The advantage of the Electoral College is that it represents population and not registered voters. So it's actually not accurate from the start. Love it.
So are you saying that the Electoral College should change every year with the amount of registered voters?
Not every year, every 10 years.
And actually, it's not an automatic change. They have to ask for it, and they have to get voted yes to expand the number of
electors. On the census people who take the time to actually accurately fill out the census.
I can get on that boat.
A lot of people don't accurately fill out the census for whatever reasons, and a lot of people just let it go for whatever reason, which it actually hurts your state in the political arena because an accurate dictation or indication of your population is actually required. Like right now, we're in a situation where Idaho is like this close to gaining a 3rd congressional seat, which it looks like we're going to miss. We don't get another shot at that with growth until 2030 in the next census. No matter if we grow 10 million people in the next 1 million people every year for the next 10 years, it doesn't matter. We still only have 2 representatives in Congress.
And it's just a shot. It's not guaranteed. We still have to
why are we only doing censuses every 10 years?
Because that's what's required. That's a good question. I don't have any idea on the answer to that.
They're expensive. Do you know how much it costs to go and talk to every person in America?
It's 2020.
Oh God, I swear to God. It may be 2020, but my grandma still don't know how to operate shit. And she's still screaming at me like, which button do I push? Is it flip? The screen is flip. I don't understand what this is going on. Is it there? You got it now?
I get it. I get it. But we're getting closer to a time where that is going to be. I don't know what other way else to say, but that problem is going to be eradicated at some point in time. It will be eradicated. So why not start making the switch now? I grew up in the digital age. I was practically raised on a computer. You know what I mean? So I see it moving towards that, and if it's definitely moving towards that, why not prepare?
Well, I mean, I agree. I think like no matter what, you got to advance. Like we've got to have some technological advancement on it. I'd like to see some help in the voting process. I don't know if I want to have your freaking national voter line that you're going for.
I think it's you know what? That's not what I was trying to point out, John. Me and you are going to talk after the show.
We're going to talk after the show.
All right, I know who that is. I know exactly who that is right now. My fellow Eskimo, my fellow Lost Eye. They do have computers in igloos. You actually get a better Wi-Fi signal in ice.
So what's interesting is like with the 2020 census coming in, I was just looking into this. It looks like New York's losing seats in Congress. So is California. Montana's going to gain a seat. Utah's going to gain a seat. And I think Florida's going to gain a seat. And Idaho's going to miss out. Idaho would have been the next one. But it looks like we missed it by under 50,000 people population-wise.
Well, luckily the system's balanced because Florida, I don't think they have enough poll in our elections right now.
Gee, John, what are you trying to say? You're against the Electoral College? I get it. Like a lot of people are. I understand it. I just don't happen to be one of them.
Yeah, if it was put in actually, like I was trying to say earlier, if we do it geographically, it evens it out across the United States 100%.
It's an interesting theory. I'd have like I said, we'd have to sit down and break it down.
We argued about this. We argued about this, and he brought this up in one of our private conversations, and the full scope of it does.
Hey, I don't need to know what you two do in private. Okay, I'm gonna leave that right there. Like you keep that yourself, Beats. Let's keep this. Let's keep this like G-rated. You know, Jessica might be.
What finger do you think I have up behind my hand right now?
It's Patrick? The peace. It's two of them. It's peace because we're all about peace and love, brother. Right?
Oh, you got scared a second. You got scared just a little bit.
I don't get scared, Beats.
Oh man, I see. There could be some change. I think there's a lot. I definitely did, Kimberly. I definitely did.
He's gonna get slapped around the next time I see it because that's twice now. That's twice. I don't like it.
Well, boys, we're coming up on an hour and 10 minutes. I think the time got away from us this time, and I know we could probably continue this conversation for another hour and 10 minutes.
Wait. Should we do hey, John, let's do an election update. Where are we at? Does anybody know? Anybody paying attention?
I've actually been following it. Joe Biden's at 264. Donald Trump's at 214.
So all
everybody knows that.
6 to win in the electoral.
Nevada.
We're looking at Nevada.
Any state. All he needs is any state right now, and he wins. Except for Alaska. Yeah, Alaska wouldn't put him over.
Nevada doesn't have an update. They're still at the 7,500 split.
Yeah, Nevada's still at 75%. Pennsylvania's at 89%. And it looks like Trump is holding what's that? 180,000 vote lead in Pennsylvania, roughly.
The interesting one for me right now, scroll down a little bit, John, because that's exactly what I'm looking at. Click on that scroll down, and then Georgia actually right there. That one's really tight. That was really, really tight.
Georgia's really tight. You're absolutely right.
I'd be surprised to see that one swing blue. That'd be crazy.
I happen to know a couple people in Georgia that would be really unhappy with that result.
Oh man.
That's because they'd have to get new socks.
Oh
Hey,
man.
I thought you might have to get new socks too. I'm pretty sure you got a pair. Don't say
Yeah,
you don't.
Oh no! My lovely friend Billy Joe Marshall got my daughter some Trump 2020 socks.
Oh
I
my
saw them.
I rocked them
Hold on a
one
second.
day.
Hold on a second. Hold on. No. I watched them get handed to Mr. John Lee. Now, if he
Yeah.
wants to claim they were for his daughter, you go right ahead. I know you're a bleeding heart Trump loving supporter. I know you are, bro. It's okay. It's okay. You can say it.
When I said I wanted to Trump, I think you really misunderstood what I meant by that.
I think, hey, look,
I want you to
John.
go watch Animal Planet and see how they do it for domination.
John has literally told me he will disown me if I voted for Trump.
I did not. I did not. That's a dirty ass lie. I said you vote for whoever the fuck you want.
I've been sitting here being neutral. I have never told a single person publicly who I voted for, what I'm doing.
Kidding. He never said that. He never said that.
No, you can't take it back. You can't take it back.
He didn't. No,
I would not disparage against your sacred American right to vote like that, Patrick, and you should know me better than that.
Yeah, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that.
Better not. Better not. Better not.
Oh man, no. Nobody told me who to vote for.
Right now,
I voted for what I wanted to.
Georgia's close, but it's 32,858 vote separation. So it has been steadily getting tighter and tighter all night. But I think the percentage is still at what, 97 or 98? Is that what it was saying?
98%, yeah. So it can go either way there.
That's going to end up real tight for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I would like to touch on this to everybody watching. Look, we obviously still don't have the results back. Nevada's not saying anything till tomorrow. So guys, remember, I know there's a lot of tension out there. A lot of you guys are worried. And look, I promise you, no matter who wins this thing at the end of the day, which I was telling these guys before, we might not know till December, right? Like, but when Florida was contested with Bush and the climate change guy, Gore.
Gore. Yeah.
Gore. when Florida
change,
it was over almost 5 weeks before it was actually settled. And that was just one state being contested.
But we already have Gore already conceded. He already conceded at that point.
Right. And now we have multiple states that are being contested. I say, guys, get ready for the long haul. This is probably going to take some time. You know,
let's just add in this. Remember this, guys. Contrary to what you may have seen on television, nothing halts the election process. So there is no state of emergency. There is no pandemic clause, according to the Constitution. And mind you, according to Nancy Pelosi's quote unquote constitutional lesson she did the other day, which was not about Trump, she actually hit on this process. Nothing stops the wheels of the machine, guys. You appeal it in the back burner. So the machine keeps going, and then you cast your appeals. And all they do is they go, okay, well, now we're going into an appellate, we're going into this or whatever else, short of revolution, of course.
All I'm saying is we are probably 2 or 3 weeks at least away from an actual declared winner of this election. That's what I'm trying to say to people. Just relax. We're going to be here a minute. It's going to take a while. It'll be done when it's done. And John's right. It's going to keep moving forward, but we're not going to have a declared winner until all the counts are done. And if there are already states that are being contested, if you think back to Bush versus Gore, a lot of people thought somebody had won. A lot of people thought somebody else had won, but nobody was declared the winner until it was actually done in court. So,
yep, true story. Could happen this time.
John is correct. Gore did concede, but then he unconceded,
and Bush accepted. And I think I think they had nominated the president within like the first 3 to 4 days. I think the appeals lasted 5 weeks, but I think within the first 3 to 4 days of that decision, because I remember going to bed and Al Gore was president. And I remember waking up and President Bush was president. And I was like,
must have been an interesting night.
What just happened?
That's what I feel like is going to happen when I wake up tomorrow. It's going to be decided. I feel like that's going to happen.
Sure. And don't make here's what I would like to see. Let's watch. Let's look at our candidates. Let's look at our favorite leaders. Let's look at our favorite politicians right now. And let's see how they conduct themselves through this entire situation. Because that's more important than anything, in my opinion. Because the votes have already been cast. It's just a matter of counting them. And then we're going to fight over the frauds or whatever else. But let's see what candidate is holding the most respect for his office, respect for the American people, who is doing his most to calm the American people down and not whip them up into a frenzy, and who has this leadership skill to lead us through this screwed up shit. Because I'm telling you right now, if both candidates just start screaming fraud and flopping around like a fish and telling their supporters to watch everybody and investigate everybody and jump all over everybody, then I'm out 100% on both candidates. We have gone through hell as a country. It is time.
I just want to
figure this shit out. It's time to sort it out. Period. Are you glitching or
you're glitching?
Oh no, go ahead.
I don't know if I'm glitching or you're glitching. One of us is glitching. Somebody's asking on the side over there what happens if one of these candidates dies between now and then. Honestly, I believe that it would go to the vice president nominee. I don't actually know that for sure. But like John said, nothing stops the electoral or the election process. So those were the candidates that were elected, and that's why they picked their vice president beforehand. So I think.
So personally, no, I'd rather just prosecute fraudsters than burn my country. But that's just me. It's just me. Personally,
no, but I understand what Carrie's saying too.
Every election year. It happens every election year. The only reason now is we're watching.
Well, here's the thing. I agree. It does happen every election year. But if they have grounds that prove like wide-scale fraud that cost the election, that brings us into a totally different, spectrum.
Who's they?
Whichever side, whether it's Trump or Biden, whichever side, if they can prove it,
it'll be a legal issue no matter what. Beats.
Right. But that's where she's talking about the creed.
Yeah, if there's a legal issue and they can prove it, then we'll be fine.
Boys, you guys, shh, for 1 second. I got to make French toast. We're 27 minutes past our hour right now.
It's 18, but I understand what you mean.
Complaining. All right, here. John, send Beats to go make some food. We'll continue.
I'm going to die. I'm going to die.
Okay. I don't trust either one of these sides to accurately call this election, and I don't think any sane person does. I don't think anybody out there thinks that we're going to get a 100% above ground, fair, honest, 100% shake on this. No, because we know that's not how the game's played, and we know that there's too much at stake for those people right now. So, yes.
Beats, you better go cook.
I'm telling you, man. We're going to wrap this up.
We're out.
Look at the comments.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. It's a fun conversation. Thank you guys for voting. Remember, stay cool. And as always, guys, you can see me on Breathe America tomorrow night and in the mornings when I get up and I talk to you guys again. And remember, be a little better tomorrow than you were today. Love you guys. Peace.
Peace. Bro.
I know.
I'm telling you, man. You just you like one of the little Pac-Man just looking for little bats.
Brother. You just got, here's the deal. It's like survival of the fittest in the conversation, man. If you can't get over the top of this, you don't need to be talking.
I think you got some magic from that blazer tonight, bro. Some magic came from that coat.
Okay, so this is an actual 70s coat, and there may or may not have been stimulants powdered on the inside. So maybe that's what it is. I got the leftover disco fever.
Yeah, that dipped into your skin real hard. Anyways, that was
Hey,
a
guys.
fantastic show, man. Like I really felt that one. I feel like we had a lot of commentator involvement today with them bringing up a lot of points and stuff. So appreciate all you guys always. Thank you for joining us. Any final thoughts, John, before we get out of here?
Just want to thank Patrick Richard for coming on again, man. If you guys have not checked out Breathe America, please type it into your Facebook search engine right now. There is a page you're going to want to like and follow that, and there is a group you're going to want to ask for an invitation, because that is where the magic happens. You got to understand that this organization or this page is not just a page. It's an organization. It's a business. It's a community hub, and it's doing so many great things for the community. You're really going to want to go check that out. Also, you know, we're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We've got our own page. You can like and follow those on Facebook. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. Check it out. It should be the Reflection
208.
Reflection 208. And yeah, don't trust anybody.
Yeah, especially the media.
Seriously, we've seen that time and time again. Keep your eyes peeled for the next couple weeks. Watch your parties. Watch your candidates. Watch your politicians. Watch your leaders.
Patrick's still in the background.
I love you. Always have. Always will. My wife loves you too. All right. We love you. Good night.
Bye.